Just fantasy baseball back here. We're talking relievers. And I know I sound excited to talk relievers, but we have some of the shittiest news in baseball yet. Like there's always one or two injuries that come out of spring training or the World Baseball Classic. And if you have a problem with the World Baseball Classic and people getting injured in the World Baseball Classic, maybe you need to reevaluate the way that you view sports and the way that you view competitiveness and the way that you view athleticism at its finest, because these guys are putting their entire hearts into this sport. And if you can't understand that they want to represent their country while doing that, well, maybe you really just need to throw your phone out the window and go read a book or something for a minute. But that's my little rant about the people ranting about the World Baseball Classic. But Edwin Diaz being out for the season, Clay, is just so sad, because he had one of the best reliever seasons of all time last year. And there was really, the expectation was for him to do it again. And now he's not going to be doing it for the Mets this year.
Yeah, and we will get into options for the Mets in the next episode, I'm sure. And not to make a joke of the situation, but Timmy Trumpet's plays are going to go way down this year, aren't they? Like, he may tank because of Edwin Diaz's injury. Like, he may not be the star that he thought he once was due to the fact that Edwin Diaz will not be coming out of the bullpen. But I don't want to go down that tangent.
I love how you said I don't want to go down that path after you've already gone down that path. But that's one of those, like, all right, too soon, man, but also kind of funny. So
yeah.
Prayers out to Edwin Diaz. But actually let's talk briefly about the options here for the Mets, because they're gonna have to make a move, or they're going to have to rely on Adam Ottavino or David Robertson to be closing games for them. And it would probably be some sort of closer by committee, I would imagine, if that happens, right? Like, pick your spots for Ottavino or Robertson. I'm not sure there's really that much difference between them. They both had good seasons last year. Ottavino has a problem with runners on base, so do with that what you will. It's not really a guy that I want pitching for me in the ninth inning.
Yeah, and these are two older options. I want to pivot and go to a younger option for them, and that's actually Edwin Diaz's brother, Alexis Diaz, from the Reds. A guy who was
they're brothers?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, that's why he was like crying on the field when Edwin was injured yesterday. But a guy who was rumored to them in the past, all the way back to last deadline. The Reds are not going anywhere. Why? You don't need an Alexis Diaz. It's a luxury at this point. If you want to join those two teams together for a trade, I think now's the perfect time. He has a bajillion years of control left. He was a rookie last season. It makes sense. And the Reds would be smart to capitalize on it if the return is worth it. But we can cross that bridge when we get to it. I want to jump into this list because the new number one guy now is one of my favorites.
Well, it's a perfect time to preface, let's jump in. To preface, now there's really only one clear-cut number one. Like, there's a one guy that's the best on this list, and there's no question about it. He's way above Josh Hader at number 2, well above Jordan Romano at number 3, and I just kind of spoiled it. But Emmanuel Clase, we talked about how Edwin Diaz had one of the best reliever seasons of all time last season. Well, Emmanuel Clase did as well. And in 2021, he had a 1.29 ERA. Last year, he had a 1.36 ERA. I mean, it's video game numbers. And Clay, I've said before how I'm not one of those guys that likes to just like, oh, let's look at the baseball savant bubbles. But like, dude, go look at his baseball savant page. Chase rate, 100th percentile. Fastball velocity, 100th percentile. Fastball spin rate, 100th percentile. It's like every single one of his things is 95 percentile or above, which that can't be, that just has to be good.
Yeah, and he's just a fantastic pitcher. A ground ball rate over 60% every single year. His barrel rate has never been higher than 3. It was 2.2% last year, has always been lower than 3%, just utter dominance. 42 saves in 2022, and he's playing for a Cleveland team that I think should once again be competitive, playing in a division that's
they're going to be really good, actually.
A bit shaky, like I mean, I don't see any reason or any signs pointing to Clase not having another ERA under 1.4, which is now becoming the standard for him.
That's ridiculous to say, and I think you're completely right. His pitch mix is nasty. He throws that slider and the cutter mix. I mean, it's just a filthy mix that is reminiscent of prime Mariano, but like he's put up 2 seasons in a row that are like better than what Mariano was even doing. And so, it's just crazy to see a guy perform at this level. So yeah, that he is far and away the best closer on this list, I would say. Shall we move over to number 2, Josh Hader, who had a really, really just weird year last year, Clay, a 5.22 ERA. And you might be like, what? 5.22 ERA from Josh Hader, and you're ranking him second on this list? How does that make any sense? Well, I think it was just a lot of bad luck. You can look at the FIP, and even the FIP isn't that great. 3.45 FIP, 3.51 expected ERA. But it also was because he had just some big blow up outings. Yeah. He had 2 6 earned run outings, which just completely ballooned everything. And then he finished the year with 9.9 straight outings without an earned run. So he was back at the end of that end of his year in San Diego. The Padres should be one of the best teams in the league. He should be in line for easily close to 40 saves. And would it even shock me if he led the league in saves? Maybe not.
No, I don't think so. He's going to have plenty of opportunities, that's for sure. One thing about him is he does give up some home runs. His 15% home run to fly ball rate last year was actually around his career average. Now, you've got to make contact first to give up a home run, right? And he's striking out 15 per 9. Walks have been an issue before. And at the end of the day, I mean, he's an elite closer. Elite. And he'll have stretches where he doesn't give up a run for, like you said, 9 straight outings. Like, that's not an asterisk there. That's somewhat the norm. He'll have that just about every single year. Definitely worth his ADP, which is around 47, especially if you miss out on Clase. Now, what's going to happen with the ADPs now because of Edwin Diaz? How much of a jump will we see in these pitchers?
Well, that's what I wanted to just talk about real quick before we move down this list a little bit more is like what is your strategy for drafting closers? Because I think the conversation around closers is so league dependent and like based on what your scoring is, are you in a league that only has saves? Or are you in a league that allows holds? Like that makes closers less scarce. So yeah, it's really league dependent. And like the best way honestly, the way I go about drafting closers is kind of like running backs, right? Where you kind of want to draft maybe 1 or 2 guys that are solidified, but then maybe have like 2 or 3 that are good handcuff options, right? If somebody gets hurt, that they're going to be the next guy up. I think that's the way to do it. Treat it like running backs, where it's like there's so many injuries, there's implosion that happens throughout the season. So it's a very sporadic position that you don't really want to spend like really high picks on.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on, what you do with the rest of your draft and how the board falls. But last year I did exactly what you're saying. I just kind of waited. And at the end of the year, I had Tanner Scott and Felix Bautista. Like that's what I had going for me at the end of the year, which I was fine with. And going into the year, neither one of those were draft options for me, right? So it can turn out that way. You can find teams. The best strategy to me is if you don't want to select a top one, select 2 that are actually going to get save opportunities, even if the team's not fantastic. Come deadline, if they're on your team and they get traded to a competitor, that's where you can really cash in.
Yeah, it happened with me with Raisel Iglesias last year.
Yep.
Got traded to the Braves and then wasn't getting saved opportunities anymore, and that hurts. But, it's all random. That's what makes the waiver wire so important. But, all right, let's move on to number 3. Jordan Romano comes in at number 3 here, coming off of 36 saves last year, a 2.11 ERA. He had a 2.14 ERA in 2021. I mean, a 1.23 ERA in just 14 innings in 2020. He's been nothing short of spectacular for 3 years in a row now. He is the solidified Blue Jays closer. The Blue Jays should be a 90-plus win team again this year. And again, 36 saves last year. Why not similar or more?
He is pretty straightforward. Like, we don't have to expand on him. Like, you know what you're going to get. A great option, a team that is going to be in save opportunities very, very often. And he doesn't have like a ton of blow up games or anything like that he had one or two, I believe, last year, but nothing crazy. Expect 35 to 40 saves again.
Right about it, man. Right about it. All right, let's move on to Devin Williams, coming in at number 4 now. Devin Williams finally takes over the closer role for the Milwaukee Brewers now that Hader is with the Padres. Finally, honestly, I think this is something that Devin Williams has been deserving of for some time now. I'm interested to see how he does handle it, though, in his first full season in the closer role, because it's a big mental jump going to the closer role. But yeah, Devin Williams has... Would you say that his changeup, the fork ball basically that he throws, or what is it, screwball? The screwball that he throws, is the nastiest pitch in baseball? I mean, it's got to be one of.
Yeah, it's definitely one of, and he has some nasty pitchers. I mean, off of the fastball last year, batters hit 090 off of it, which is just a thing. Yeah, 090. It sounds so weird to say it like that, but either way, a 128 slugging off the fastball. Do you know what his barrel rate was? If you've not looked it up, just guess.
Barrel rate overall.
Yes.
I'm gonna guess it's down close to Clase. I'll say under 5%.
Yes, it was under 1%, 0.9% barrel rate.
That's got to be the lowest.
27% hard hit rate.
That's got to be the lowest in the league then. Yeah, that's
absolutely
ridiculous. It was the lowest in the league, for anybody wondering. It was.
He does struggle with walks from time to time, as so many of these bullpen options do. 4.49 walks per 9, but match that with a 14 Ks per 9, and finally the opportunity to be a closer.
Yeah, that's actually what I'll touch on before we move on to Raisel Iglesias is Devin Williams probably is the first guy on here where I'm like, how many games are the Brewers going to win this year? Like, this Brewers team, I don't know how to react to them. Like, are they going to be a 78 win team, or are they going to be like an 86 win team?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Devin Williams is probably good for projection systems, having him 27 to 30 saves, which I think is probably pretty conservative. But yeah, the Brewers are not as good as any of the teams that we mentioned above, but it is what it is. So let's move on. Raisel Iglesias, who is now, I mean, a veteran of the bunch, 33 years old. Last season, he pitched amazing. I mean, when's the last time that Raisel Iglesias didn't pitch amazing? He's had one season in his entire career, or 2 seasons, I guess that is. I mean, his first season with Cincinnati, he was still a starting pitcher and had a 4.15 ERA. I'm not counting that. He's had one other season with an ERA that wasn't below 3. So it's consistency. It's consistent season after consistent season for Raisel Iglesias. Last year, he had 17 saves, 2.47 ERA. Again, you know what you're getting here with Raisel Iglesias, but now he has the closer role locked down for the Atlanta Braves, who are one of the best teams in the league. I think a sneaky thing, too, to mention about Iglesias is hopefully he sprinkles in some wins, too, off of this.
Yeah, and, it's a guy with a 4-pitch mix. And he throws all 4 pitches, which a lot of times you see closers come in, which is 2 pitches maybe, and 3. But, former starter can throw all 4. Like you mentioned, going to have a bigger opportunity this season with Atlanta. I never really loved the fit with the Angels. I have a sour taste in my mouth for the Angels in general. So I'm glad to see him in Atlanta, a super, super good team that's going to give him every opportunity to get some saves.
Is that like Mike Trout and Ohtani playing for the Angels is honestly like the least cool thing that could happen for baseball?
I don't really know what to think about it, because in one way, like one side of it's like, okay, they're on the West Coast, like all the East Coast people will have an opportunity to watch if they want to stay up. And those are the type of stars you stay up to watch. The product just has not been very great. I mean, overall, it's just not been very great. Individually, they have been, but man, Luis Renjifro rounds out to second, and now we go to the top of the inning, and now we have to wait again to see Mike Trout and Shohei, and I just don't love that.
It's not great. I mean, I'll take Shohei pitching all day long, but
yeah.
Okay, Ryan Pressly coming in here at are we up to number 6 now? We're cruising right along here, folks. This is gonna be a shorter episode. It's relievers. We don't really need to give you the whole rundown. They're all nasty. They all get saves. If they're on a good team, you can pretty much count on them. And Ryan Pressly is another guy like that. He had 33 saves last year for Houston. He had 26 saves in 2021. He's carried an ERA under 3 in 2 straight seasons. He strikes out a lot of guys. Has a nasty curveball. Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say?
Yeah, I mean, his ERA actually, if you expand it a little bit further, it's 4 out of the past 5 years have been under 3, and a FIP of 2.31 last season, 182 average off his slider with a 51% whiff rate. Just what is there to say? He's a really good pitcher, and that's why he's on one of the best teams to close out games. It's simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a pretty nice feeling drafting a guy like Ryan Pressly, because you're like, oh, wow, he plays on the Astros, the best team in baseball in my mind. So that's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, and again, with these ADPs, I mean, he's around 68 to 70, depending on where you look and when you look. But, I mean, I don't know if these are going to go up. Because
that's why I mentioned Clay. Like it's so league dependent and like your type of scoring. But the way I would tell people to handle it as well is like it's kind of like tight ends too a little bit in fantasy football, where like once somebody grabs that first closer, that second closer, then there's just like this run on closers. So like you can just kind of get a feel for your draft. Don't be the guy that drafts a closer like 2 rounds too early, though, I would say, because there's a lot of good options here, right? If you miss out on one of Jordan Romano, Devin Williams, Raisel Iglesias, Ryan Pressly, like you can grab one of them. There should be an opportunity to grab one of these guys.
I do want to mention somebody in my league who has come in first and second the past 2 years. Goes like closer early, more than 1 too. Gets 2 right off the bat. And it's worked for him well. I mean, it's a points league, so it's a little bit different, right? You get, I think, 5 or 6 points for each save plus strikeouts. Like, yeah, I mean, he's racking up some points every night.
That's why. That's interesting. But again, like you said, it's so scoring dependent.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Ryan Helsley comes in at number 7, and Helsley actually had the most dominant reliever season last year. A 1.25 ERA, was lower than both Edwin Diaz and Emmanuel Clase. Oh, by the way, he struck out 39% of batters. He was ridiculous. And any batters that did get on against him last year, he had did not reach home plate. 93.4% left on base percentage, which to me is going to normalize. Like that's actually kind of not a concern. Like he's nasty. And he has a fastball that reaches not just triple digits, like it reaches 102. He has an insane fastball. He was on the Just Baseball show, so this is like a friend of the network, I would say. But Clay, he comes in at number 7, and this is the first guy that I think I have just a tad bit concerns about. Like that left on base percentage, like I said, he's a fly ball pitcher. He got pretty lucky last year, although it's not like if he was unlucky, it still would have been an insane season. But also they have Giovanni Gallegos, who I would consider to be one of the better 8th inning guys in the league. And so like if Helsley gets hurt or Helsley doesn't perform, like Gallegos is damn good. So I think this is the first guy where I'm like, is drafting Ryan Helsley high the move, or is waiting and like taking Gallegos way late as kind of like a flyer handy, like a handcuff the move?
Yeah, and I have not thought of it from that angle. And it is a little bit concerning because it's not like he's established himself as a closer over the span of 4 years. Like you said, like it's the first one that seems to have like more or less any risk in terms of losing their spot. So keep that in mind when you're drafting. But man, this guy averaged 99 on the fastball last year, slider
No. Average
53,
99.6. Like, give him
99
every
points.
decimal there.
Round up 100.
Like, that is insane. Do you know how hard
53%
you have
whiff
to
rate on the
throw
slider too.
pitches to average that much? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, he doesn't just hit triple digits. He goes beyond triple digits.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe he'll hit 103 this year. Let's get a guy hitting 105. That's what I want.
Can I talk about the next guy?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You go for it.
Felix Bautista. So I have a little funny story about Felix Bautista, who's with Baltimore, right? And he was actually, his first pro season was 2013, and he just debuted last year. I was writing a trending up article last summer, and I remember calling Aram. It was about all of the rookies, and I said, "Can I put Felix Bautista in here, or am I too early on him?" Like that's how I was like, "This guy's legit," but first pro season 2013, just now debuting 9 years later, and well, he proved to be absolutely elite in his first full season here. 2.19 ERA, 12 Ks per nine, 90. Another guy touching 100 on the fastball almost every time he throws it. 53% whiff rate on what Savant classifies as a split finger, and I think he has enough stuff with all three pitches, and he only uses the slider to righties, but I see it. And they traded away Jorge Lopez last year, who
It's
was
his
getting
job.
saves
It's his
because
job.
they believe in him. This Baltimore team, my question to you is, what do you think they're going to be win-loss wise? And
I mean,
is this
I think they'll be fine, man. Like, I think the Orioles are gonna win. I think they'll be around 75 to 78. I know a lot of people are really excited about this Baltimore Orioles team and are like, oh my God, this is the year, like 82 to 85 wins. They're going to be looking for a playoff spot. I just don't see it, man. This pitching staff is not where it should be yet. And even the lineup, like, is not there's not a superstar in this lineup. I mean, they're
right?
Adley, sure. Give me Adley. But, it's not enough for me yet. Right. I'll argue to the death that the Red Sox are still the better team than the Orioles in this division, and that even people have had problems with that. But yeah, I think the Orioles will win enough games for him to be a valuable closer for fantasy purposes, for sure. Clay, you know what's ridiculous about Felix Bautista? Fangraphs needs to get on their stuff a little bit here, because they're listing him right now at 6'5", 190 pounds. Like, have you looked at him recently?
I weigh 190. I'm not 6'5", but let me tell you right now, he's not 190.
He's like 260. 6'5", 260, I would say.
When did they take that weight? 2013?
Oh, that's got to be from back from 2013, maybe. It might be. All right. Regardless, he's nasty. Let's move on. Kenley Jansen has moved from the Braves. We'll move from the Dodgers to the Braves, and now he goes to another powerhouse. Is that his thing? He just loves going to whatever powerhouse team. It's pretty good strategy. He goes to my Red Sox squad now, and Kenley has been a guy that's led the league in saves, or at least been up there for every year he's played, it seems like. Last year he had 41 saves, a little bit of a shaky season, a 3.38 ERA, but a 2.38 expected ERA last year, a 3.21 FIP. I would expect him to put in another fantastic season. There's been a lot of talk about Kenley Jansen and how he'll respond to the pitch clock. I don't think there's going to be that problem. I think that he knows what he has to do to come into this season to be a premier closer. I don't think the pitch clock is going to really matter for him.
I think he has the most proven innings of anyone on this list. He's been doing this a long time. 35 years old. 3.38 ERA last year. Elite movement on all of his pitches. Colby, every single pitch, batters hit under 200 against him on last season.
Well, Clay, I am a little confused on the Kenley hate. Like, I feel like there's been a lot of Kenley doubting coming into this season.
I
And I know
think
he's turning 35, and I know he's coming off of like, a not so spectacular season, but like he's put up an expected ERA of under 3 in every single season since 2015. Like, why should I have any reason to believe that he's going to regress this season? And the Red Sox should, again, win enough games for him to put up 30 plus saves.
this might be really just way too specific, but I remember he was struggling a little bit, and then I think he actually blew a game to the Padres when he was on the Dodgers. And that's when the Dodger fans started like all of this Kenley, like he doesn't need to be the closer anymore. Like he's cooked, and it kind of started this narrative around him that was a bit unfair and a bit knee jerk. And to me, still a great option. I'm not going to hate on the Red Sox. I think that they have a good lineup. I don't think that they're going to win as many games as some teams that we've listed on this list. So that bumps them down a little bit. Still worthy, in my opinion, of being, a top 10 closer. And I think he'll put up numbers to show that.
Yeah, I mean, like you would think that Kenley Jansen led the league in blown saves last year, but he didn't. So I don't know. It does seem like Kenley gets a lot of hate for a guy that actually has performed really well for most of his career, but that is what it is. I'm not saying he's the best reliever in baseball. I mean, he's had an ERA over 3 in 4 of the last 5 seasons. Like, that's not elite, but he gets the job done. All right, last guy, Clay. And I think it's probably my favorite guy on this list, just from a value perspective and how nasty he is. Camilo Doval. You watched the game last night. I mean, he was filthy. He is electric. Fastball is up to 102 again. This is another flamethrower. Last year he had a 2.53 ERA, 2.9 expected ERA, struck out 28% of batters. Does struggle a little bit with the walks. What I do like about Camilo Doval, though, is a lot of relievers actually tend to be fly ball pitchers, and Doval gets a ton of ground balls, 56% ground ball rate last year, pitches in a pitcher-friendly park. I think he should go over 30 saves as well this year with a really good ERA. So I think from a value perspective, Camilo is intriguing. I wouldn't be worried much about Taylor Rogers moving over to the Giants. I think, speaking of blowing saves, Taylor Rogers led the league in blown saves last year. And Camilo or Farhan Zaidi has already said that that he's going to be the primary closer. So I'm not worried about Doval's job. I think at 25 years old, this is his job to keep.
Yeah, he just has nasty stuff. 1 home run off of his slider to 57 strikeouts. I think you covered it all. Like, he is going to get near or above that 30 save mark. I don't know like what to think of the Giants, and I say that every single year. I just never really know what to make of their roster construction. Some years it works out, some years it doesn't. But I think he will get enough opportunity. And like you said, he's pitching in a ballpark that favors him.
He'll get enough wins. That Giants team isn't that bad. People are critical of that Giants team, but their rotation is pretty solid. Their lineup is the concern, but I think they'll score enough runs. So yeah, I like Camilo as kind of my favorite guy to this top 10, just from a value perspective. But yeah, anything else, man? I think we covered it.
The only other thing I have to say is we've yet to do this. So it's time to get the cringy moment in and ask everyone to like and subscribe. If you're on Spotify or other podcast platforms, go over to YouTube so that you can see our pretty faces as well.
Yeah, I mean, we literally never ask you guys for anything, and this is almost the least you can do for us. So yeah, go like and subscribe on YouTube. It's always better to see me, looking back at the Fangraphs page and then looking back at Clay. So I'm just looking everywhere, numbers, dissecting everything. But yeah, Clay, awesome episode, dude. Next episode though, we got a fun one. We got Reese White coming on. He's going to talk about first-year player draft. So any of you dynasty people out there that want to listen to that episode, even just like if you want to be caught up on kind of like the next future stars that were just drafted and are going to be developing, I think it's a really good intro to just kind of figuring out the next wave of MLB superstars. So make sure you listen to that. But yeah, anyways, Clay, enjoy your weekend, dude. Enjoy some March Madness. Talk to you guys next time. Adios.